The Ted Cruz climate change denial. It's not just a dying river in Egypt. It's also a broken record.
The satellite data
show there is no significant warming whatsoever.
for 18 years.
18 years.
18 years. Damn it, 18 years. According to the satellite data.
For 18 years.
So Ted over here always repeats the same argument against climate change, but does he repeat it because he's listening to the science, the people,
pumping $15 million to Republican Ted Cruz's super PAC,
or the tens of millions of George Washingtons donated to his campaign by oil and gas interests, whispering sweet nothings into his ear?
Tell them there's never been a day in the history of the world the climate is not changing.
There's never been a day in the history of the world in which the climate is not changing.
Let's break down Ted's argument to find out. There's 5 bullet points in your typical Ted Cruz climate denial, starting with Ted Cruz, the science guy. Ted always begins by laying out his scientific credentials. And by his scientific credentials, I mean his parents' scientific credentials.
I'm also the child of 2 mathematicians. Son of 2 mathematicians. Look, I'm the child of 2 scientists. My parents are both mathematicians, computer programmers. My dad was a self-taught geophysicist.
But Ted, even if your dad is good at something, does that mean you are? I mean, would you trust Paris Hilton to run a hotel empire?
I don't know.
What is Walmart? It's like they sell wall stuff?
She'd forget to leave the light on at a Motel 6. But if Ted doesn't know science, what does he know? Debate. He is a debate master. Princeton put him in their debate panel Hall of Fame. Harvard Law School asked him to debate at the 1995 World Debating Championship. Even Cruz's college roommate confirmed his master debating skills. But Cruz's specialty wasn't just in any debate style. It was in parliamentary debate, a style that doesn't rely on research and facts, rather it emphasizes argumentation and rhetoric. Like?
Because climate change is not science. It's religion.
The cooking of the books.
Global warming alarmist.
I'm reminded of the bard, methinks she doth protest too much.
If Shakespeare were alive to hear that, I'm pretty sure he'd pull Romeo.
I'm reminded of the bard, methinks she doth protest too much.
Look at that face. Just not too long, you'll hurt yourself. It is the face only oil and gas companies could love. Because there's so much evidence out there supporting climate change that you gotta donate to someone who's trained to ignore facts and rely on rhetoric. Anyway, this is all just very important to keep in mind as Ted Cruz starts bringing up the data. Which brings us to 2. Cruz screws the data.
The satellite data. The satellite data showed no significant warming whatsoever.
It's a little off subject, but are they doing an interview? Because it looks like they're about to turn on Netflix and disobey Leviticus, if you know what I mean. Now, if the satellite data actually said there was no significant warming, that would be significant. But here's the kicker. Ouch. The satellite data goes back to 1979. So why is Ted so obsessed with
18 years. Damn it, 18 years. According to the satellite data. For the past 18 years.
Let's see here, 18 years. That puts us at 1998. Oh. Armageddon. Duh. Good night, sweet prince. What, you think there's another reason Ted starts the data in 1998? Barbie? That was my next guess. You talking tennis ball.
He starts at that time for a very specific reason, and that's because there's a huge El Nino event in 97-98, which puts a huge spike in the global temperature.
1998, big El Nino. So it's kind of interesting we started 18 years. We don't look at a 15-year data set or a 10-year data set or a 20-year data set. We look at an 18-year data set.
I fail to see the significance.
Actually, Senator, it's not. If you take off that top really big spike and you take that out, you start getting the upward bias. And this is what people do when you start looking at these relatively arbitrary times, is you start with a really high number at the left-hand side, and that kind of influences your basically your linear trend.
Using half the satellite data to prove climate change isn't happening is kind of like using the National Enquirer cover to prove Ted Cruz is a cheater. But don't worry, Ted, we're all smart enough to know it isn't true. You don't have time to have sex with 5 mistresses, you're way too busy screwing the planet. And this brings us to an instrumental part of every Ted Cruz argument, projecting. Projecting is when you start accusing other people of doing the crap you're guilty of. For example, you say something condescending like,
But facts and evidence matters.
but then we learn it's a fact you eliminated half your data. Or you accuse scientists and liberals of inventing climate change for grant money and power.
More power over the economy and your lives. Politicians mathematicians that want power over our lives are receiving massive grants.
The scientists who are receiving massive grants.
Right after you got $25 million in donations from the oil and gas industry, or when the scientist who gathered your satellite data says this.
Senator Cruz focuses on one data set, mine, from one type of instrument, satellites, and he ignores all the other evidence.
And once that's brought to your attention, you react like this.
The scientists who put out that satellite data says that you're misquoting it and misusing it.
Listen, I understand that there's scientists with political agendas.
So just to clarify, here's Ted's argument. We can't trust scientists because they have political agendas, but we can trust Ted Cruz because why would he have a political agenda? Wait, what? When Ted realizes all the evidence is stacked against him, he makes it about religion.
Become, in effect, a religion rather than a science. You know, it used to be, it is accepted scientific wisdom, the earth is flat, and this heretic named Galileo was branded a denier.
Dad, I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but I'm seeing some flaws in your analogy. So it looks like Galileo actually used the scientific method. He didn't just piss on it. He never pretended half his data set didn't exist. And, oh yeah, this is a big one. He never accepted $25 million in campaign donations from the Sun. But other than that, oh, nope, one more. He wasn't a douche. Now, because of all those donations, it's almost like Cruz knows he needs to beat you to the punch with his motivation for denying climate change. And that brings us to our final bullet. Won't somebody think of the
Single mom right now. Single mom.
But if that single mother lives in Miami, by the time she's a single grandmother, her Sunday best might be a wetsuit and a life jacket. Now, I'd love to think Ted Cruz's motivation is good. But as Ted Cruz likes to say, John Adams likes to say,
And as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things.
but Ted, when it's a fact that NASA says carbon dioxide is at its highest level in 650,000 years, and it's a fact that 9 of the 10 warmest years have come in the last century, and it's a fact that Arctic ice has reached its lowest levels on record, and it's a fact that you're the largest recipient of oil and gas donations, and it's a fact that you intentionally ignore more data than the National Enquirer, then don't be surprised when voters wonder what other issues is he getting paid to lie about, and it becomes a fact that you're not in the White House.
And with that, this hearing is adjourned.
And if you feel like I feel, baby, then come on. Oh, come on.
Hey guys, I'm Charlie Berens. Thanks so much for watching. Click here if you want to see one of my sketches. Click here if you want to see my commentary on lawns. It's way more exciting than it sounds. And give a click up there if you want to subscribe.
Let's get it on.
That's your mouse.